In this video, I'm going to give you my sales pitch. Whether you're a mover, whether you're an agent, whether you're a journalist in the home moving sector, or anyone else who has an interest in Britain's housing market. And my sales pitch is exactly how BestAgent solves the problem that nothing else has been able to solve since the internet came along. Now, this is shooting from the hip. It's going to be a long video, but I'm going to give you a summary in the first 5 minutes, a bit like an executive summary. I'm going to be doing this in the style of an investor pitch, although I am not pitching investors for reasons that will become clear and explained in this video. But let's just get the coffee on the go. I'm nervous because this situation has been 26 years in the making. And on Wednesday, the 4th of September, I've got BestAgent Day, it's a kind of soft launch to try to encourage more agents to get on board with BestAgent, which they can do without having to talk to anybody. But let me just get into the story. Right, so everybody knows, I don't know anybody who doesn't know about how bad the home moving problem is in the UK. Let's leave aside homelessness, let's leave aside affordability, let's leave aside those other problems. I'm talking about the actual process of moving. Transaction times are at record lengths and not getting any better. So it takes longer to move home than ever. Estate agency fees are the lowest they've ever been in this country and continue to get worse, and that adds to the problem. The public's understanding of the moving process doesn't get any better for two reasons. First of all, the industry makes no attempt whatsoever to educate movers into the process of moving. And secondly, because every day, week, month, year, there are new movers who are brand new to moving and it's their first time looking for a home, whether it's renting or buying. So this problem, and it's a real problem, is worth solving for everybody because, as other industries have shown, when you unlock the demand potential from moving, everybody benefits. And there's plenty of evidence and data, won't go into it now, that shows that if it was easier to move, more than twice as many people would move home every year as do now. And that's good for social mobility, it's good for the economy, it's good for the moving industry, it's good for everybody. Okay, so if the potential for moves is more than double, what's standing in the way? What's causing the problem? And why have all attempts to solve that problem thus far failed completely? So the barriers, and I'm still in the summary stage here, the barriers are protectionism, especially among the largest companies, but throughout the whole industry. And that's not just protectionism by estate agency business owners, but also protectionism by the very large supplier industry to estate agents. They don't want it to change. They want it to stay how it's always been and they don't want it to change. The second barrier to the change is that dishonesty is profitable currently, right? It pays to be dishonest and it costs you money if you are an honest agent. And number three, until now, until BestAgent, there hasn't been the technological vision for a platform that enables the removal of these barriers, removal of dishonesty with transparency, and the removal of protectionism in a way that it no longer pays to be dishonest. So the simple proposition behind BestAgent is that it is a win, 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 win. It's a win for the public, for movers. It's a win for agents, more transactions. It's a win for BestAgent if it becomes the provider and the let's say it starts to become a contender in the home moving marketplace and perhaps grows into the place that moving happens. And number 4, it becomes a win also for all the supplier businesses that embrace a forward-thinking way that increases transactions. Because if you're a supplier to estate agents and your clients start to do double the number of transactions, that's very good for you if you're a supplier as well. So the only potential losers in the scenario where BestAgent succeeds are dishonest, protectionist businesses. Well, hey, in the end, you guys never survive in other industries, right? Now, let me give you a quick example of what I mean. And both of these examples actually show that when you bring transparency and speed and convenience to an industry, the number of transactions just mushrooms. Uber. So before Uber came along, the process of booking a private hire taxi was slow, frustrating, onerous, expensive, slightly risky, and just not very good. And even though the potential existed with technology to fix it, the incumbent protectionist businesses, for example, London taxis and firms like Addison Lee in London and private hire firms, they didn't want any innovation because it would dislodge their monopoly on the market. But drivers and passengers, there was an enormous appetite for the freedom and ease and security to be unlocked. And what happened? When Uber finally broke through the protectionist barriers, it took it a few years, but when they did get through, the number of people using cars, private cars to go from A to B, absolutely skyrocketed all over the world. And it opened up a whole new market that didn't exist before. And everybody benefited, drivers and movers alike, on the whole. And the only losers were the protectionists who were forced to change. And the other obvious one is Airbnb. Airbnb's existence meant that suddenly far more people were able to rent holiday accommodation and serviced apartments. It was easier and faster and better value to do it through Airbnb than it had ever been before. The properties existed before and the desire for people to travel existed before, but it was expensive, slow, and of course the hotel chains absolutely fought it as tooth and nail as hard as they could because it was a threat to their protectionist business model. But look what happened. It didn't just unlock the travel industry, it actually unlocked incredible experiences, travel experiences for people who previously couldn't have dreamed to have those experiences. People who couldn't afford to use taxis before, people who couldn't afford to travel before, suddenly unlocked a huge explosion in the growth of those markets. And that's what would happen if the same can be achieved in the moving industry, right? That's what would happen. If it was suddenly quicker and easier to move, more people would move. Even if it wasn't cheaper to move, more people would move because people want to move. People want to move for non-financial reasons. People want to move for personal reasons, life reasons. And if it was easier, more people would do it. It's as simple as that. As in, if it took less time and if there was less uncertainty. And at the moment, unfortunately, the protectionists and the most dishonest companies are the ones who are effectively holding the entire housing market to ransom by leading the way, showing that it is profitable for agents to be dishonest. But actually, it doesn't work. And it's not working for the industry as a whole. Transaction volumes, although they're picking up a bit this year, are way down on where they could be, as are incomes, as are fee levels. And when things are better and easier, and when service is higher and more value can be added, people don't mind paying a bit more on the fee. You know, currently, if you want to move house, you're waiting typically 6 to 9 months. And that's 6 to 9 months of abject uncertainty until the contracts are exchanged, okay? During which time your life is on hold. If you were a seller and currently you're paying 0.8% or 1% fees for this 9 months of uncertainty, would you probably pay a bit more, like 1.2 or 1.5%, if you knew you could move in 2 months? Obviously, it's worth that little bit of extra money to remove 6 months of uncertainty from the process. And that's what's up for grabs here. So, why hasn't it happened? Because in the last 28 years or so, since the internet came along, every attempt to, and I don't like this phrase, but disrupt the home moving industry has been misguided. So, including my own very first attempt, which was to cut out estate agents. So that's the first mistake people have made, is thinking that estate agents are the problem. They aren't. They're the solution. And that's why this company, this business, is called BestAgent. Because whether you want to hear it or not, and a lot of people don't want to hear it, the truth is that good agents are the answer to this. Good agents have much more potential to unlock social mobility and transaction volumes and prosperity in the housing market than anyone realizes, at the benefit of movers. No one's forced to use them. If you're a seller, you don't want to use them, you can always sell privately. Good luck. You've got to remember that, right? Everyone gets this wrong. Everyone thinks that estate agents aren't needed. Well, a lot of people do. And they're wrong. Why? Because 95% or more of people moving house choose of their own free will to engage an estate agent of some kind. What was the next thing that failed? So purple bricks, that failed. It still exists, but it's in a new guise. And it's not going to work. It's not going to make a difference. I mean, if it worked, it would have just taken off, wouldn't it? Why did it not work? Because they thought that you could simply automate the process and just have effectively order takers who are signing up people, getting paid up front, and leave the rest of everything happening online. It doesn't work like that. Even some of the country's biggest estate agents were investing in these online agents, and none of them have worked. They've either died or had to pivot into same old no sale, no fee models. What else happened? There was a massive attempt in the conveyancing industry to create a home moving platform for conveyancing that would speed it up. Huge. Big firms got involved, millions of pounds, and it fell flat on its face. Agents themselves have tried to set up businesses. So when On the Market was first started, and actually it did have the potential, but they got it wrong because they were misguided. They didn't understand the tech and the ethos of tech and the internet and transparency. And so they tried a protectionist approach, and it literally destroyed the chance. So On the Market was an attempt by agents to take control away from Rightmove, and it backfired horribly. It gave Rightmove more control. What about Rightmove? People say, well, Rightmove's never tried to change anything. Rightmove doesn't want to change anything. The way things are right now has been eye-poppingly profitable for Rightmove. So why would Rightmove want to change a thing? They don't. When you have a cash cow as effective as Rightmove, the one thing the shareholders won't let you do is change anything or risk anything. And so for that reason, Rightmove has become a barrier to the entry, a barrier to change as well. And there were others. There were plenty. The graveyard is littered with massive venture capital funded attempts to disrupt the property market, thinking everybody wants change. And that's been the ethos. That's how I got my first attempt in this business funded. Everyone thought, well, everyone wants change because moving house is painful and everyone hates estate agents. So let's put lots of money into something that doesn't need estate agents anymore. And no matter how many times people fail, and no matter how many hundreds of millions get burnt, people still think that that's the answer. And it's like, we just don't learn from our mistakes, do we? So, all all of the world's most successful startups that have led to positive change in a consumer industry have only succeeded because it was a win-win for everyone involved on both sides of that marketplace. All right? Nobody's tried to do that in a estate agency. Nobody's brought something new that is better for movers, faster moves, less uncertainty, easier moves, and better for agents, which is getting paid proper fees for doing the job well, getting recognised for that, and seeing your business grow because your reputation grows in the back of it, and doing more transactions. That's the win-win. That's the obvious win here, okay? Because ultimately, agents and movers' interests are aligned. Nobody gets what they want until the move happens. Agents don't get paid until the move happens. Movers don't get what they want until the move happens. And so everyone is aligned in wanting the move to happen. But unfortunately, there are too powerful, large organizations adopting a protectionist approach that is preventing that from happening. And very, very simply, I give you the anecdotal example of someone wants to sell their house. They're unfamiliar with the process. They inquire with 3 agents, and they tend to go to the biggest ones because they've got the most boards up and they've got the most advertising. And someone comes around and convinces them that their house is worth more than it really is. So they sign a contract for 6 months. They sign a contract for 6 months with an agent that isn't going to sell their house. Effectively, that move, the potential for that move has just been taken out of the marketplace in the interests of that agent's business. And those agents' business approaches, like, let's just get all the listings. Like, simple strategy. Everyone in the company can understand it. Get the listings. Get more instructions than anyone else. We'll worry about everything else later. We only have to sell 1 in 3 of those listings to meet our sales targets, as long as we're selling the other things as well. And this is where there's a major financial dissonance in the estate agency industry, because only the large volume agents can afford to sell houses at low fees because they make so much money. Because of their volume, they command eye-popping referral commissions from conveyancing and lending and broking companies that smaller agents cannot ever hope to match. That is part of BestAgent's proposition, is making sure that smaller agents have equal and fair access to sensible referral commission levels, right? That actually make all the cogs turn faster. And so it's become incredibly difficult for a small agent to compete on these low fees when they don't have the backup of alternative income streams, which is the only reason the big agents are in business. Without those big agents getting the referral commissions from other services, they would not be in business. It's that simple. So they are effectively selling their estate agency services at a loss to get sellers' business in a way that small agents can't hope to compete with. And so when a seller is talking to Mr. Big Agent and Mr. Small Agent, Mr. Small Agent's fee is always higher. And by the way, if Mr. Small Agent's fee isn't higher, if it matches it, they cannot possibly afford to do the job to the level that sellers want to do. So why am I gambling my entire career, my family's future, and everything on BestAgent working? How can I, or anybody, have a chance of solving this problem if all these companies with all this money have tried and failed to solve it? Well, my approach is this. The demand for an answer to this problem exists, right? Good agents want more business. That's the demand side from the agent side. They want more business. And BestAgent's approach is intended entirely to make sure that good agents get more business. Movers want more transparency, especially on prices. There's huge demand for transparency on prices. And movers want less uncertainty and an easier less frightening move. The number one piece of feedback that I get from the movers watching the Moving Home with Charlie channel is that I have, or what they've learned from my channel has given them the confidence to step into that lion pit without being chewed up and spat out by the industry. Okay? They want the confidence to be able to move safely without being ripped off. So there's demand on the mover side. There's demand from the good agents. The bad agents do not want this. And that's how you know you're on the right track. And let me define bad agents. Bad agents who don't sell the majority of their customers' listings, and if they do sell them, they take too long, and they don't get the best market price. Those are bad agents, right? Those are businesses that are making money without actually delivering customers' best interests. So why do I think that a business that doesn't have investors and that has been bootstrapped has a chance of succeeding in answering this problem when others have failed? Okay. This is where I'm going to get a bit nitty-gritty, got to go back in time and tell the story of all the things, all the details of this. This is now, if you're still watching this now, then you must have a really deep interest in the industry. And if you don't have a deep interest in the industry, you probably don't want to keep on watching now, because I'm going to be telling stories that go back just in order to explain how I have seen with my own eyes in the room. I have seen firsthand examples of everything that I'm talking about that is a problem, and therefore how to solve the problem. Okay, back to the beginning. It's my view, after 28 years in this industry, 26 years actually deriving an income from this industry, it's my view that nothing answers this problem, nothing solves this problem unless it does three things. Solves the public's problem of transparency and uncertainty. So in other words, any new venture like this needs at least a portion of the moving public to support it and want it to win and to be on its side, right? You've got to have the public with you. Like Uber did, like Airbnb did, because my God, hey, it's easier, safer, better value. Yes, we want that. So do I have the public on side? Well, the Moving Home with Charlie channel currently gets somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 views a month of the videos across all the channels. And as such, I think it's probably the largest social media channel on moving house. Not on investment, not on being a landlord, not on any of those things, on moving. I think it's the largest channel by views on moving. So it's a start, right? And 250,000 to 500,000 views a month it's moving the needle. Secondly, I've got to have at least a proportion of estate agents on board to adopt this and participate in it. And I know that there are good agents who want these things. And I know I've still got a lot of explaining to do about how it works and why I think that BestAgent, and led by me with my experience, is how we break through the protectionist industry players and get to a point where good agents get recognized, get more business at better fees, and just have have the prosperous life you deserve when you're actually giving customers what they want. And thirdly, the other thing you have to have, so you've got to have the movers on board, you've got to have the agents on board, you've got to have the technology that can deliver the speed of progress that everyone involved in a transaction needs. And this is where I'm about to start explaining about my background of the last 26 years gives me all three of those things, right? A deep, deep understanding, I would argue, and I've put this challenge up many times and nobody has challenged it. No one knows more about the processes of estate agency than I do. Only because I spent my entire adult working life, almost, except for the first few years in the city, involved in the property market, in estate agency, in the front line with not just one business, but multiple estate agency businesses. Okay? Got to know. So I've got movers, I know estate agency. And the technology, I have been conceiving and designing software and tech for the property industry, mostly just for England, but for Australia as well for a brief time, for 26 years. And I don't know if anyone else has been doing it that long. And of the ones that may have been doing it that long, they have not spent time in the front line of clients' estate agency businesses like I have. Sales, lettings, property management, national corporations, one-man bands, everything in between. I don't know anyone else who's done that. So that makes me uniquely experienced to see the big picture of what's needed to solve this problem. The hardest part is getting to the tipping point. The tipping point meaning when the progress and the success of this concept is starting to reach enough people that everyone starts to notice it. So all major progress in an industry, in any industry, never happens overnight. It always takes years, and it's always a gradual process, and then a tipping point after which it accelerates. And based on all the research I've done, the tipping point I need to reach with BestAgent for it to become what I think would be a runaway success in terms of benefiting agents and movers is around about 15%. All right? Round about 15% of agents participating. Doesn't even have to involve money, by the way. If 15% of agents are participating in BestAgent, and there are ways to participate for nothing, then my prediction, and this is, I don't make predictions very often, but this is a prediction, with 15% of agents, so we're talking about round about 3,000 estate agency branches or businesses, or the freelancers, the self-employed guys running their own business, right? Round about 3,000 around the country, and we will have made it to a point where all the agents participating are seeing the benefits of it, as are their customers. The result being shorter transaction times, consistently shorter transaction times, much, much shorter. I've said that the target is 10-week transactions, right? From a property coming onto the market to being completed in 10 weeks. And what I haven't had a chance to get into yet is that this is not just by doing another right move. No. It's got to become a transaction platform. And that's why I've already got conveyancing firms, lenders and brokers all willing to participate in the actual technology that makes the transaction much, much smoother and much, much faster. Doesn't require any legislation, anything like that. It just requires technology that makes it easier to do it this way than any other way. Easier for buyers, easier for sellers, easier for agents, and easier for the conveyancers and the lenders that are involved. I haven't said this publicly yet, but I have this vision of what I'm calling the one-click move. And basically it is the BestAgent sellers who come to the market through an agent where they originated on BestAgent will be coming to the market much more prepared than other sellers, as will buyers. And therefore, with much more prepared sellers and much more prepared buyers, with the participation of lenders, surveyors, brokers, and conveyancers, we don't need many, right? Just the ones who want to participate. We can offer, believe it or not, 7-day exchanges in some cases, right? In certain cases, there is no reason why a properly prepared seller meeting a properly prepared buyer and agreeing a deal, which, by the way, relies heavily on the agent. This is not in any way cutting out the agent. It is absolutely smoothing the agent process and giving the agents more time to spend on the personal and psychological side of a transaction and less time administrating data and asking for paperwork and all that kind of stuff. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. I've gone down a rabbit hole and a tangent. I can't remember what point I was making, but it's the three things that are needed. Public on side, agents on side, the tech working, and a tipping point of 15% reached. So we wrote the first line of code in BestAgent in 2016. And from day one, and it's all been done in-house, from day one, it's been designed to be a national platform with the capacity to handle the entire country's moves, properties, movers, bank-grade data security, scalability. It went live actually in the wild, working for estate agents in December 2017, and has effectively been in sort of live beta testing and development since then. But it is the largest piece of technology ever built in the industry. It would need to be, wouldn't it? But what I want to go into now, and I know I've been talking for a long time, I want to go into, because this is really, really aimed at agents. Right? As a mover, if you don't want to listen to any more rambling about the industry and you're actually like, Charlie, you had us at hello, what do we do? Go and register as a mover on BestAgent, right? Register a buyer or seller or both, whatever. Register as a mover on bestagent.co.uk. Just go and register there. Register for what you're looking for. It's in its early days. You're not going to see the same thing at this point as you do from other sites, but you'll be ready as it does start to come online. We've already got all the properties in the country on there listed. And there are many subtle differences into how it works with agents that are specifically designed to avoid the protectionist agents. I won't go into those details just yet, right? But if you're a mover, how do you want to help? Register at BestAgent. And if you are buying or selling or renting, register your exchange price or your let price on the BestAgent house price index. Just search BestAgent HPI. If you can't find it, it's on the BestAgent homepage. It's on bestagent.news, where we report house prices, and that's where our house price index is growing. And it's the country's first public house price index, and it's what we are using to force transparency of prices on the protectionist companies that don't want it. I'm talking about the excessive overvaluers. When I talk about overvaluing agents, which I do a lot, and ending overvaluing is a major focus for BestAgent, I'm not talking about mild over-optimism from an agent that's genuinely enthusiastic and passionate and loves the house with the seller, but gets it slightly wrong and they end up getting 2 or 3 or 4% less than what they listed it for, right? I'm talking about the agents who knowingly add 10, 15, even 20% to what they give as a valuation over what they know it's actually worth, and then lock people into long sorted. When I say overvaluing agents, those are the ones I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the ones who are optimistic because no seller likes a pessimistic agent. But it's really important that we torpedo the worst excessive overvaluing, because that directly inhibits transactions. And one of the things that it does is it also slows down other chains. If you are the seller in a chain and your buyer, who you've accepted an offer with, is on the market with an agent that overvalued their property and locked them in, your sale is being held, even though you were realistic, even though you didn't overvalue your property, even though you listed it at a sensible price, you got it sold quickly to a buyer that genuinely wants to buy but needs to sell, but they're locked into it. This is where there's a direct link between the worst overvaluers and transaction times taking too long and chains failing. Deliberate excessive overvaluing and then locking people into long solidity contracts is the number one biggest thing that contributes to transaction times and chains failing. It's not land registry delays. It's not local council searches. Yes, there are instances where that is bad, and that definitely contributes to it, but it is not by any means the biggest cause. The number one biggest cause is the protectionist agents who are deliberately adding 10 to 20% on a seller's price expectations so that they can lock them in. And that seller now can't move. Okay? They can't move because they don't understand that they need to drop their price 15% to get sold. And that's why roughly half of sellers that come to the market don't sell at all. Okay. Draw a line. I'm going to the next part now. I'm now going to pitch myself as the best person to lead this project, to lead this attempt to unlock the pent-up demand from movers, both buying and renting. Mostly buying, but renting as well. To unlock that and to unlock all of the benefits that flow from that. Why am I the best person to do that? I've said that the solution to this needs to be something that understands movers, both at a micro level and at a macro bird's eye view level. It needs to be someone who understands estate agency, genuinely. I've had estate agency clients tell me that in their opinion, I understand more about estate agency than anyone they've ever met, especially someone that's never actually been an estate agent. And if you listen to the story I'm about to tell you, you'll understand why that is the case. And on tech, I have made it my business for the last 26 years to make certain that I learn from from all of the tech successes around the world, how to build a product that users actually adopt and embrace and engage with, which is much, much harder than anyone realizes. Anyone who's ever tried a tech startup, building an app, whatever, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? It's much harder than anyone realizes. And it's why 95% of all tech projects fail. Most people outside tech don't know that. So, movers, agency, tech. I'm now just going to I'm going to try to condense the last 26 years of my experience into 26 minutes, like 1 minute per year. Straight out of school, one of my best mates, age 19, went to work at Foxtons. 5 years later, he ended up as Foxtons' most successful branch manager at the age of 23, 24, and then left Foxtons and joined me as my business partner to set up the first company I started selling photography and floor plans and virtual tours and website software and CRM software to estate agents. And that was in 1998, 1999. So back in the 90s, I had Foxton's number one performer join me as my business, and it was a schoolmate, right? And what I didn't hear and learn about how Foxtons worked as a business, and it was the fastest growing estate agent in London at the time and continued to be for some time, wasn't worth knowing. Secondly, my girlfriend, before that happened, I got her a job at Foxtons through my friend. And I lived with my girlfriend. We lived in Kensington for a while she was working at Foxtons. And I used to, every evening when she got back from work, we would talk about her day. And she was a negotiator in the South Kent office of Foxtons. This is before the internet happened. And I remember talking to her, long story short, and guiding her to the point that even though she was one of the youngest and newest negotiators at Foxtons, she broke the record for exchanges in 1 month, which at the time was 21 exchanges. 21 of her deals exchanged in 1 month at Foxtons, directly on the back of the guidance and advice that I was giving her about how to approach her job. And then my next best mate, who was actually my oldest mate from way before school, who was the best man at my wedding, although he started at Foxtons, he went on to Countrywide and was I think he was Countrywide's Countrywide, biggest estate agency in the country. And he was the highest paid frontline agent in the whole of Countrywide. Didn't want to be management. He didn't go into management. He wanted to stay at the front line, and he was easily the best at what he did in that entire company. And he was very clever because he was offered all kinds of promotions which he turned down. He wanted to stay at the front line, worked his way into the most expensive marketplace in their entire country patch, and was the single largest fee earner in the entire company. And this is all before I've even got into the industry, right? So, by the way, and during that time, I was also buying and selling properties. I was being a landlord, I was being a developer, just one at a time, buying, renting out, selling, doing very, very minor cosmetic fixing up. With sheer dumb luck, I got into the market at the perfect time when house price growth, real inflation-adjusted house price growth, just went like that for a long time. So that's where I learnt what it was like to be a landlord. I learnt what it was like to buy property. I learnt what it was like to sell property. And I didn't learn about estate agency at that point. That's when I thought to myself, when the internet came along, we don't need estate agents. Okay. So I decided I didn't want to make my living as a landlord or as a property developer because I found it unrewarding and unfulfilling. It was just money that wasn't making a difference. And I wanted to make a difference. Questioning the wisdom of that decision now. Well, if BestAgent works, it will have been a good decision because I will end up doing a lot better out of BestAgent than I ever would out of just being a property developer, even if I'd gone all the way. So, very briefly, age 26, I raised money from angel investors into a company with a business partner, the one that I told you about. He was one of three of us. The other guy was a tech guy. I wasn't a tech guy to begin with. So there's me, the tech guy, and the agent. And we raised, on a valuation of £1 million just for the idea, we raised money to start up a business that was going to use the latest tech, digital photography, floor plans, 360 images. And by the way, in the late 90s, this was bleeding edge. We started off by trying to cut out estate agents. Which just goes to show how even someone who was, I thought I knew about the property market, my friend who was the ex-Foxtons agent thought he knew about the property market, and we all thought agents weren't needed anymore, and we were all completely wrong. And it was actually a larger investor who came along and he said, the tech that you've built, does anything exist like it for estate agents? And we went, no, it doesn't. That's why it's going to work, and that's why we won't need agents anymore. And he said, wouldn't it make more sense to sell it to agents? And I can remember thinking to myself, no, you don't understand. The whole point of this business is to cut out estate agents and allow people to sell their properties privately. And you don't understand. And no, you can't. We're not going to. Oh, they're the enemy. We're not going to sell to the enemy. No. But from a business point of view, it made perfect sense because selling our product direct to the consumer was consumer retail sales, which is very, very high overhead, maintenance, customer service, a million questions, with actually not high enough margins. And it's another sale. It's a million new sales. Whereas selling our technology to agents was, a business customer that's going to place repeat business every single day. And that's what we did. And very quickly, by having agents as clients, and our first major client was a countrywide agent. This is in the late 90s, and they said that what we were doing, which was the combination of a lot more imagery than was typical at the time, plus a website that could display it, plus the CRM software which matched buyers to properties automatically and emailed them the details. This hadn't been done. It was the first time it was done, and they said this is revolutionizing our business. This is where the protectionism actually was some nepotism as well as protectionism. So we had a foot in the door with the country's biggest estate agent. Unfortunately, the boss of one of the other brands inside this big estate agent was also the uncle of another estate agency software provider. Not web-based, old-fashioned, Visual Fox Pro, 90s, clunky shit. And because it was the uncle, he literally derailed us, blocked us, when we were about to start selling to other brands and growing and having Countrywide as our client. And actually, ultimately, it's a story for another day. Countrywide's ultimate demise, when it died, went bust and had to be bought, could be traced back to that kind of protectionist behavior, where the leaders of Countrywide didn't understand tech, didn't think that tech was important in the operating of a business, and led to some years later, a friend of mine who works for one of the biggest tech companies in the world, who'd been called in to consult to them as an emergency to try and save them, turning around to me and saying, and block your ears if you've got children in the room, I'm about to swear, Countrywide are fucked, totally fucked. And that was about 3 years before they actually finally went under and had to be sold. And that little story should tell you just how bad the protectionism is in the industry's biggest companies, right? It's also worth mentioning that at one point later on, when I was pitching technology, I did get to go and pitch the next company, the next CRM system I built up. I got to pitch it to Countrywide at their head office to the IT guys, and it was patently obvious. They had the IT guys themselves, who were basically running a cartel within a cartel. In other words, all of their jobs relied on the fact that they had to have physical servers installed, and the software that I was selling didn't require any physical servers. Most of them were in the business of just server maintenance. Most of them would have been put out of a job, and that's why the tech that I was providing them, which was game-changing tech, didn't get in the door. Protectionism. Not just at management level, but at IT department level as well. And that wasn't the first time that happened. There were other big name agencies that did exactly the same thing. So the point being, my vision from the beginning was always, there's a huge opportunity here to completely transform the industry, make moving easier for the benefit of movers and agents. But at every turn, it was getting derailed by protectionism and backward looking and just feckin' Egypts. So this company that I started, going back to this first company I started with me and the other guy, we quickly got up to a company of 40 people. We were taking photographs and floor plans and virtual tours in London and in Sydney, and we had an estate agency software system called WebDaddy. Terrible name, but it was a good system. And one of the customers that we had using it, and we got people like Chesterton's using it, Douglas and Gordon were using it, and Dexter's using it. And Dexter's was using the photographs and floor plans and the software. And this is how I know a lot about the origins of the intentions behind what is now London's largest estate agency by office numbers. All right? Foxtons and Dexter's, London's two biggest estate agents, I had personal first-hand involvement with in the early days. I'm not saying that I was anything to do with their success. I'm just saying I could see what was happening. And I understand the way those businesses were run. Now, one of the guys that we hired, let's just tick off estate agency and tech and that kind of stuff, right? The head of IT from Foxtons left Foxtons and came to work for me. not only in the first company I started, but also the second one. Well, I'll come on to that in a minute. And so I had sitting next to me all day, every day in my office, the guy who was head of IT at Foxtons, London's fastest growing estate agent. Imagine what I learnt from him. So that first business was growing and growing and growing. It was going absolute gangbusters. And that's when I had my first experience of an investor revolt. When suddenly, because the company was looking like it was going to do so well, there was a power grab. And the investors started fighting each other and me. And as the founder of that business, I got fired. And it was one of the most painful, in fact, it was the most painful thing that happened to me in my life at that point. I was 4 years into that business, 4 or 5 years into that business, and I got fired. Simply because of personal agendas. And it was a real shame, because at that point, just to give you an idea of the scale of what was happening, we were in discussions with Rightmove. Rightmove's MD came to us, Ed Williams, the founding managing director, CEO of Rightmove. And this is another area where I've got background in the tech and in this whole industry. He came to us to talk to us about the potential of putting Rightmove together with the web-based software system that we had built, that I designed, for the obvious benefit of estate agents and movers to make Rightmove effectively a transaction platform. That's always been the vision. Well, of course, once the company I was then running got derailed and split up and splintered into smithereens by the idiot investors that I had, Rightmove ran a mile, quite understandably. So after I got kicked out of that, I then set up the next business. And the most frustrating thing about that was that once I set up the next business grew faster and was doing better. And I had Hamptons, Jackson Stopps, John D. Wood, Knight Frank, Savills, Douglas and Gordon, all these big London estate agencies as clients using our much higher quality professional photography and floor plan and brochure service that we were doing. And we had that company grew to 120 staff in 3 countries, London, Sydney, and a back office in Sri Lanka, doing the CAD drawing of the floor plans and the retouching of the photographs and the design of the brochures, all that kind of stuff. We had a big team in London, and that was going so well that the owners who kicked me out of the first company approached me and said, "Hey, we've made a mistake. Do you think we could put your new company and the old company back together again?" And I said, only if you guys are going to walk, because why would I put myself back in a situation where you could fire me again? So that didn't happen. But it was vindication, It was that vindication of, oh, whoops, we made a mistake. You're the one with the vision. You're the only one that got the big picture. No one else does, and that's why it's dying in the arse. But as always, with the benefit of hindsight, it was a blessing. But 2008, the global financial crisis hit the property market very, very hard. We were paid on a per instruction basis for the properties that we were taking on board, and there was a 70% collapse in our incomes. And so that company failed, sadly, and had to go, was killed by the 2008 crisis. And that was when I built the next software product. And the next software product, I'm just trying to keep this short. This is where I finally had the freedom, because I didn't have idiot investor partners. Well, I thought I didn't. I had one partner and it was going really well for a long time. That's another story. He was an idiot, but not for business reasons. He wasn't an idiot. He was an incredible guy, but he did something idiotic, which we all do sometimes. But this is what's relevant to what I'm doing now. This is where I got to really get close to my estate agency clients' businesses. And I effectively became like a consultant or a board member to those businesses that wanted it, into really how to turbocharge their businesses in a way that they absolutely took off, because they were delivering outstanding results for their customers. So I was working front line of estate agency with multiple different estate agency businesses all around the country, top of the market, and I mean the very, very tippy top of the market in Mayfair, all the way down to the entry-level pricing in other parts of the country, large volume, relatively low property values, and everything in between. And I was producing management information for these businesses, and I had this unique insight into the financial dynamics of estate agency businesses. Exactly where they make money, exactly where they lose money, and how to make them efficient. And every estate agency business that followed my guidance that I gave them on using the tech, using it how it was intended to be used, saw, frankly, difficult to believe growth in their businesses. I mean, we were taking on a company with 3 branches, and after it took our software on, I was turning from three branches into 9 branches in 3 years, just through very, very strong organic growth, not through acquisition. We had as many new branches opening from existing customers expanding as we did from new estate agencies joining us from other software systems. We had multiple award-winning estate agencies from around the country joining us and experiencing growth that they'd never seen before. And this is where I bring a unique level of knowledge, because no other estate agency software businesses did this for their clients that I know of. I would sit front line with the negotiators, with the branch managers, with the property managers dealing with tenants and landlords and check-ins and check-outs. And it was the first system in the country that was sales and lettings and property management in one single web-based system where all properties, you could have a property that was let and managed. It was being marketed for let because the tenant was leaving, and marketed for sale because the landlord was trying to sell it, all in one single system with one single property record handling all of those things. That's still not, to my knowledge, not been done since. Maybe it has. And if you're, maybe it has, I don't know. But to my knowledge, it hasn't been done since. What's the relevance of this? We started to get approached by big corporations. I didn't want to work for them because they become monopolistic clients. And I had my time wasted repeatedly by several of them who promised that they were taking it seriously. And I said, look, I don't believe you. And they still wasted the time. Every single one of them wasted my time. I liked working with independent owner-managed businesses because I could have a one-to-one relationship with the owners of these businesses and make a difference. I didn't like working with big businesses where you're dealing with department heads who have no power to actually make business-wide changes. And every time I got to work with the boss, we always made massive improvements, progress, difference, and changes. And then there was one company, I won't name it, but it rhymes with spicy fart, who were they're a large corporate, but they were actually privately owned by one guy. And I got to meet that guy, and I thought, okay, I'll make an exception. And they put out to tender. They went to 8 companies, then it was down to 3 companies, and we were one of 3 finalists, and then we were the ones selected that they were going to proceed with. And I witnessed, not only did we have, long story short, on the day after 6 months of setting up implementation training programs for all these brands, 250 branches around the country, on the day of contract signing, he changed his mind. And to the disappointment, not only of me, obviously, but that was going to be a £15 million contract. And it would have done the same for their business, and it had done for every other business that used it. It would have absolutely transformed their business. Not on its own, but because of the combination of good tech and good agents working together. And they are one of the protectionists. Overvalue, lock you into a long solvency contract, fail to sell your house. And that particular individual is one of the most odious, self-serving, egomaniacal tyrants I've ever come across. And I'm not saying that because I'm bitter. Don't get me wrong. I am bitter, but what I'm saying about him is true anyway. And he's the kind of poster child for why the industry as a whole is so protectionist and backward looking. So the 4 ingredients of BestAgent succeeding are having no venture capitalists pulling the strings, because they don't tend to have the vision and they don't understand the big picture and they're only interested in short-term gain. Not having any of those involved. Tick. BestAgent. I'm the sole owner. That's it. Understanding estate agency. Tick. Track record to prove it. Understanding the moving public. I think I can actually put a tick in that box now and say, based on the audience growth, the feedback I get, that the moving public I also understand and I have their ear. And number 4, tech. Understanding the application of technology to this industry and how to build a big enough platform to take care of it. Now, all that being said, BestAgent, although it is the biggest, broadest, deepest piece of tech in this industry ever, it is still, relatively speaking, embryonic. And because we are a very small team and under-resourced, it's got a long way to go. There's a lot of debugging, a lot of wrinkles behind that, but the fundamental building blocks are in place. A public-facing site, an agent-facing CRM system, a transparent house price index, and a supplier marketplace. It's all there. It's all built. It all works. It's just in its very early days. And once we start to grow and get adoption, we can start to really develop it and take it where it needs to go. Okay, guys, that was a very, very long ramble. The purpose of this video was simply to let anyone who wanted to know everything there is to know about why I'm doing BestAgent and why I think it has the potential to work if we can get the adoption. The only remaining challenge is to see if enough agents will adopt it. I've tried my hardest to remove all the barriers to that adoption. There's no contract, there's no commitment, there's no risk. The leads are pay per lead. No one gets preferential treatment. The corporations won't have any power. There'll be no big corporate clients having too much influence over it. And there's no risk to trying it. So I'm really hoping that agents will adopt it in large numbers. We don't have a road-based sales force out there signing up agents. Why not? Because that's expensive and agents have to pay for it. So it's better that agents can just sign up themselves online and start interacting with the leads that come in. It's pay per lead. Buy it if you want, don't buy it if you don't want. Simple as that. On the vendor side, it's send them a video message. The whole point of it, when you get a vendor lead, is don't just click the button saying, yes, I'd like to talk to you. They're expecting a video message from you. So send a video message, a personal video message, when you get those vendor inquiries. Okay, time to wrap it up. If you're a mover still watching this, wow, thank you very much for watching to the end. Please make sure you've registered on BestAgent as a buyer or a seller or a tenant, whatever you need to be. Please make sure you register there. If you follow Moving Home with Charlie, on my website there's an email newsletter sign up. Please sign up to the new email newsletter if you want to support this whole project to improve the housing market for everybody. If you're an agent, please open your agent back office account. It's free. If you've got an up and running estate agency, you'll find all your property listings are already in there, just from publicly available data. And please make sure you've got your correct contact information so that you get the leads where you want them. And if you really want to support BestAgent, please consider joining the BestAgent Club. Just go to bestagent.club, you'll find it. Links for all of these things will be in the video, in the description below this video. And if you're watching this video somewhere where there aren't links, mhwc.co.uk, bestagent.co.uk. You'll find everything you need in those two sites. If you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe because it does help. So click a like and click subscribe on Moving Home with Charlie if you're a mover. And if you're an agent, like it and subscribe to the BestAgent YouTube channel. follow me on whatever your favorite platform is. I'm not asking you to follow me on all the platforms, that's silly, but whatever is your favorite social media platform, both Moving Home with Charlie and BestAgent are on all social media platforms, except Snapchat. And if you are an investor who thinks that you are not guilty of everything that every investor I've ever worked with, bar one, but he died, if you think you're not guilty of the tricks, and basically, if you're an investor who would get as much fulfillment and reward out of seeing this industry get changed and the difference being made to people's lives as you would out of the financial upside, and you're willing to risk it all to see that happen, get in touch with me. If you're the kind of investor that would just do it on a punt and on a whim, what I don't have time to do is to pitch again and again and again and again to people who want to and and ask me to send them spreadsheets and ask me to send them projections to businesses and can't be asked. Like, if you aren't passionate enough, as I am, to bring this change to the home moving market and to ultimately end up with a home for everyone and an end of homelessness, if that doesn't motivate you to want to be part of it enough, then you're not the right investor anyway. I'm not expecting there to be an investor like that, but I never refuse an offer before it's made. On that happy note, guys, wish me luck. If you're an agent watching this before September the 4th, please make sure you go to, just look up Best Agent Day, come to the Best Agent Day on September the 4th, the most valuable day of insight from the most amazing speaker lineup there's ever been in an agency, all of whom are behind this concept. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching, and I really mean that.